So, so we are here at the Vienna Comic Con 2017 edition, and we are the Court of Owls. We have Scott Snyder here and Charles Soule.
Hello.
Is it Soule?
Soule, you did it right.
So great, that's great. I don't want to fuck it up.
I appreciate that very much.
So I'm gonna ask questions for both of you, and we can figure something out.
Sure.
But first, about the Court of Owls. These are questions from Hungarian comic fans.
Sure.
So if they are dumb, it's not my fault. So what was your inspiration for the Court of Owls, if there were any?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much to all the Hungarian fans. I really appreciate it. We hope to make it there sometime soon. But for me, the Court of Owls, you know, it was my first gig on Bruce Wayne. I was really nervous and terrified, and it had initially been an idea I was playing around with Dick Grayson when I was writing Dick Grayson. I wanted to do something that was about an organization that was hidden in the history of Gotham. And then when they told me Bruce Wayne was going to be the character, the main character of Batman again, I didn't know what to do. And then I came into the offices and I was walking around one day after talking to them about the fact that it was going to be Bruce Wayne, and I was pretty terrified. And I remember I was walking around the city, New York City, and just realizing how much had changed from when I grew up in the city and how much was different from when I was a child. And it started to dawn on me that Batman, Bruce Wayne, prides himself on this idea that he knows the city better than anyone. You know, he knows every nook and cranny. And the thing about living in a city like New York, Charles and I, you know, I lived there a long time ago.
20 years, yeah.
Is that, and I'm sure with Vienna it's the same, it changes so fast. So you know it for one moment, and then you don't know it anymore. And so I wanted to do a story where I realized Batman would have to be humbled, where he'd have to find humility, because he'd realize that I might know the city right now, but I didn't know it 10, 15, 100 years ago, and I won't know it 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Yeah.
And if there was a way to create an enemy that could show him that and say, you think you understand everything, but there'll always be an element of mystery, and you have to let that go. And then I built it around that. So it was sort of an idea of trying to create a story where at first he doesn't believe the court was ever real. Well, they were real. Then he doesn't believe that they're still around. Well, they're still around. Then he doesn't believe they have any influence anymore. Well, they have bases in his family's buildings. And then he says, well, I'll stop them. You can't stop them. And not only that, but they have influence over your family. And then the core is, you know, well, they don't have anything to do with me, at least. Like, and then you realize, no, they do. So I wanted to show a way in which it was almost like a reverse ripple, like a concentric rings coming towards him closer, saying...
It's like a kind of labyrinth.
Right, exactly, where it's almost like you think he thinks they don't even exist, but more and more and more he learns that not only do they exist, but they have ties to his own history. And so the lesson was always, you'll never know everything about Gotham. It will always be partly a mystery to you the same way any city or any place you love, well, you might know it right now, but you won't know it soon, and you didn't know the lives that were lived there much before.
But you did some kind of companion series with Trevor McCarthy to this one, with James Tynion. Which was the name of this? Like a miniseries.
There was the backups, you mean?
Yeah.
The one about the
backups
Jarvis,
also,
or?
but I don't remember the name. Oh, okay, maybe I'll remember it later.
yeah, James is great. I love him.
So there's another question. It's for Charles first. So, who is your favorite non-superhero character or book?
Yeah, non-superhero character or book. We were just talking about this last night. We stayed up too late last night.
That's great.
At the bar, just talking about comics and what we really love right now. You know, gosh, there's so many that are cool. You know, there's a book. I mean, there's this book by a friend of ours named Jonathan Hickman that I love, named Black Monday Murders, which is all about, you know, like money magic. It's this crazy thing, but I enjoy that very much. I like, you know, Saga is a great book. There's a reason it's does as well as it does, and everybody loves it. I really like that story. I feel like I'm on the spot because there's so many great books, you know. But what else have I really been enjoying recently? I think Hellboy is a character that is very, like, it's always, at its worst, it's still really good, and sometimes it's just like, it's this transcendently amazing story. So those would be mine, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, indie stuff right now,
Curse words.
I was going to say, it's hard because I do actually read a lot of his stuff, so I love what he's doing with Curse Words and Letter 44, which just ended, but I love that book. I think what my buddy James Tynan was doing on eugenic and the books that he does with Boom, I'm really proud of him with The Woods and that stuff. I think Josh Williamson stuff, Birthright, and Nailbiter was great. And outside of that, I'm trying to think. I mean, the truth of the matter is, like, this year has been such a monster in terms of metal and all that stuff. Like, I've just been, and the politics stress you out with Trump and all that stuff. Like, I haven't had much of a chance
much time to read. I don't read as much. You know,
before
we had, like, I mean, this is not a complaint. We're so lucky, right? But when I was coming into comics, all I read was comics. I read them all the time. But now that I write more than I read, almost, which is a good thing, kind of. But I always wish I had more time to read. There's so many new things coming out that are great.
Yeah.
But with the curse words, like you're working on that full time, or you're doing other books as well? You're working for.
I write a lot. I write more than I should, maybe. Right now I do six monthly ongoing things plus novels. So I have my.
You're like Scott, because Scott is on every book I see on DC.
He does more than me. He does more than me.
But it's you know, I never really have to motivate too much or push myself to write. Like there are times when it's stressful because I don't have the story I want. Like, I know I can do better than what I have, but it's always great to be working and developing a story. You know, again, like at the bar last night, all we talked about was each other's stories and how we can, you know, it's just the greatest thing in the world to be building these stories. And I, you know, and the other thing, like he's DC and I'm Marvel, but it doesn't matter. We've been talking about stories for years and years, and it's just great.
That's pretty great, because there's a question like this: what inspires you to write?
In general?
In general, or in, I don't know, in general.
Well, I
in
mean,
general.
I think that, you know, as a kid, you get into it just because you want to make stuff up. You have an imagination, and you like living in your own head. As you get older, the stuff that you respond to, or that you realize that mattered to you as a child and now matters more to you as an adult, mattered because it hit certain nerves, that it was about something that mattered to that writer, and you connected with it. It's about connecting with people about the things that you're most afraid of, most excited about. And so with comics, there's such big mythologies. I mean, they're the folk heroes of, you know, now, of modern times. But if you can find a way to say something that you care about, or that you want to be, more brave in the face of, and you can have Batman do that, or Daredevil do that, and show your children or you how to be more secure, braver in the face of deep fears. There's nothing more gratifying than that. Or making up your own comics where you're doing the same. But for me, the purpose is to be able to stare at the things that really matter to you most, whether they're your deep fears or your deep hopes, and be able to express those through either these vehicles that are these monstrously popular characters, or to make your own, you know, world, and to be able to do it that way. But it's always about trying to reach out and communicate with people out there about things that keep you up at night, that are good or bad, you know, any of that stuff really.
Scott's, you know, again, we've spoken for hours and hours and hours and hours about storytelling and why we do it, and I think your approach is a little different to mine. I do those things too, but for me, there's a big element of using my craft and skills to make something perfect. I like the idea of you know, I think of it in my head like, you know, when a sculptor has a block of marble and they're chipping away and making this beautiful thing, and I enjoy the craft of using my words to make something that just, there's a point when I'm working on a story when I'm just like, I got it, like it clicks, everything's perfect, and I like working toward that moment. It makes me feel really good when I get there. But I also think, you know, particularly with the big, you know, Wolverine or Daredevil or Darth Vader, like it's a way for you to you know, express things that are personal through this lens of, you know, the idea, like Darth Vader is a murdering robot monster, wizard. He's a terrible, he's the worst. But I'm able to talk, through that book, I'm able to talk about how, like, you know, the world right now makes me angry, sort of. Like, there are things about the world that I do not like right now. And I'm not going and beating people up on the street or like screaming or anything like that, but I get to write a story about a man who is completely composed of rage, and telling that story gets it out of me into another place, which is healthy, right?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. That's what I wanted to ask, if real world inspires you or in any way, but I think you answered the question. So both of you, can you talk about your newest book you're working right now? Like what I say, curse words? Maybe?
Yeah, sure.
And,
Go ahead.
You go first. Go ahead.
Well, I have a couple things that are very exciting right now.
Uh-huh.
So Curse Words is my book at Image with my good friend Ryan Brown as the artist. It's about a wizard in New York City who shows up, and there's no wizards. He's the first wizard. He shows up, he starts doing magic. Everyone's like, wow, now we have a wizard. This is incredible. And they're very happy because it's great to have a wizard. But he is actually a super evil, selfish guy who is here for his own reasons, and things start to go really dark and bad very fast. But what's funny for me is that it's a fantasy book, but it's also very funny. It has a real line of humor in it that a lot of comics don't even try to do these days. And for me, it's just I like telling jokes with my friend Ryan, so we put them into the book. So that my first novel is coming out in April, which I'm very excited about. Wow! It's called The Oracle Year. I know we sold rights in Germany, so maybe it will be here eventually.
That's great.
I don't think we've sold Hungary yet, but hopefully someday.
I think it's going to happen because there are some publishers in Hungary who regularly publishes comic writers' novels, which is really funny, but they do that.
It doesn't matter. So that's about a guy who can see the future. It's called The Oracle Year. So that's coming out in April. And then comics, I mean, more Darth Vader, more Daredevil, more X-Men, more Poe Dameron, more everything, and new things that, you know, we can't really talk about the newest things.
Yeah, of course.
But lots of good stuff to come.
But there's newer things coming as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think, I'm not sure if Dark Knights, if Metal has started here yet, but that's
sure. Yeah.
That's our big one. So we're doing a big event for DC called Metal. It's essentially about the Justice League discovering that there's a dark multiverse beneath the multiverse itself, and it's much bigger and vast, and it consists of all of our fears and hopes. And so a villain goes down there and takes the 7 worst versions of Batman and brings them here. So you have Joker Batman and all this crazy fun stuff. And it's very rock and roll. It's Capullo and me, and we're just having a blast on it. We want it to be the most fun sort of party you're invited to in comics. So I've been working on that for DC, and then once that's over, I have a new book I'm doing with DC. I'm doing a Batman story. So I'm doing a new series with DC in superheroes. Then I'm doing another book with Sean Murphy over at another department of DC within Vertigo. That's going to be the last moments of our Batman's life. So it takes place years in the future. It's pretty fun. It's almost like our Dark Knight Returns.
What's it called?
Last Night.
Wow, that's so sharp.
Yeah.
So and then I'm working on Witches right now, which I love.
Right?
Really?
Yeah.
So a volume or?
Yeah, in the States, it's already basically we're doing 2 volumes at once. We're doing we're doing a prelude to the second arc that introduces a new character who is part of the group that hunts witches, and that's coming out right now in the Image Plus catalog. It comes out every month in the States.
Like the Walking Dead Negan.
Exactly, it took the place of that. And then
also with Jock?
with Jack, yeah.
With Jock.
And then the second arc proper, which the character in the prelude is the mentor to Sailor, who's the main character of the first arc. He's teaching her how to hunt witches. The prelude is about him and how he grew up, and then the second arc is about the 2 of them almost together. The second arc will probably start in early spring. We're working on that now as well. So
That's
a lot of
really
witches, great. Yeah, and then stuff I can't mention too because it's all you know to be announced soon. But yeah, a lot.
We should
2018.
We should do something.
That would be a good announcement.
Yeah.
You should announce it now. That's right. Since Attila Futaki, Artists of Severed,
he's from
Hungary.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't know if you can share anything from the creative process or something like that. From the series.
He was fantastic. I mean, he was so visionary with it. I loved the way my friend who I wrote it with, Scott Tuft, he introduced me to Attila's art, and the moment we saw it, I realized like he would be great. And he had such an evocative style where he was able to make things feel very immediate and intimate and yet still almost historically preserved. I love the way it really resonated on the page where it felt.
Did he fully paint it? Did he color it too?
Yeah, he colored it too.
I mean, it shows. It's beautiful.
He had some help, but
it's great.
He's fantastic. I really hope he does more. I hope he does
Yeah,
more.
me too.
I would work with him again too. I haven't. You know,
actually he is working for the French market nowadays.
Well, he was doing the Harry Potter books or whatever.
No, the Lightning Thief.
Oh, Lightning Thief. That's right.
Yeah.
He was doing like the illustrations.
He did 3 volumes, I think.
That's right. I knew that took a while. I saw it. It's like I have 3 of them, and they're like 200 pages each. It was like okay,
10 years.
Yes, and they're actually smaller, but he did it in the same size like the American size. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. Okay, question about Ryan Brown.
Yes.
How do you usually work with him? Is there like a process?
I hold on for dear life. The way we usually do it is, so we're just starting the 3rd story arc of Curse Words now. So the first arc was called The Devil's Devil, the second arc was called Explosion Town, and then the 3rd arc is called The Whole Damned World. And so I just wrote the first script, and before I wrote it, I sat down with my notebook and I was like, well, here's what I think I'm going to do. And then I got on the phone with him, and so we talked about it, and he's like, well, what if this happened, what if this happened? And a lot of that is, well, wouldn't it be funny if, like, wouldn't it be weird if? So a lot of it is trying to push the ideas to a place that feels like curse words, like where things, like you have no idea you cannot predict what's going to happen next. And so we talked about that, and there's a new character we're introducing there's this, nothing in curse words makes very much sense, but there's this big underlying theme of American baseball in it. And so the big new villain who pops up in the 3rd arc is based on Justin Verlander, who's the from the Tigers. And so we called him the Overlander, like Verlander but Overlander.
Yeah.
And so to actually answer the question you asked, we just talk, and we talk about what's fun, we make each other laugh, and then I go write a script, and I leave a lot of room in it for him to do things that are fuzzy. And so there's 5 new characters in this first issue, and I don't know what they look like, I don't know what they're going to be like, I'm just like, these are what they're going to do, make them up. And then he makes them up, and then now I have these new personalities and things that I can play with, and then I'll bounce that, and we'll do back and forth, bounce, bounce, bounce. And that's how we work together. He's very funny. He's a very funny guy. Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys for doing an interview with us, and
yeah, of course.
I hope to see you at the Artist Alley.
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Pleasure.
Yep.